So welcome. So what we do here, Scott, and I told you a little bit about this, is we try to spend about 45 minutes to an hour or so, and if there's any questions, we may take a little pause and ask some questions from any of the folks here. But we really want to hear your story. We really want to hear how you got into the business, what were some of those early challenges, things you had to overcome, how did you build your business to where it is today, and that sort of thing. So what I'd like to do is just start all the way from the beginning, if we would, and talk about, now you've been licensed for a little while.
Just a little while. I was licensed before all of you were born, I'm sure. Actually, 1972 is when I was licensed to first sell real estate. But I became fully active in, I guess it was 1998 when we kind of took over the company. This is to give you my roots. I want to read a poem, if I may, that you might find interesting. This was written by my wife. At the time, it was my girlfriend up at Arlington High School in 1969. My mother and father were Rex and Ernie Street. Her mother was Alice McLean. Her father was Mac McLean, but he wasn't in real estate. Her mother was in real estate, and so were my parents. We were dating, and in class, she wrote this poem, which we still have. You can see this paper's a few years old. It's kind of yellow, but it's probably 45, 48 years old. This is the poem she wrote. Rex, Ernie, and Alice, all of a kind, the real estate bunch, all sick in the mind. There's just no quitting once you start. It takes up time and steals your heart. Now, she's 18 years old writing this. Contracts and mortgages are all they know. They're never home, and it's starting to show. The fridge is empty with nothing to eat. Alice and Ernie are out on the beat. There's never a chance to use the phone. There were no cell phones back then. I may just open an office of my own. That's pretty funny, too. They're addicted and nothing can be done. Rex, Ernie, and Alice think real estate is fun. That's Cindy, 1969 version. So that's how long we've been at least I've been doing this. And when my mother and father started the company in 69, I was a senior in high school. And so I decided they decided actually that I would get my real estate license. And so they kicked me out the front door and off I went and was licensed in 72. Really, at the beginning, my mom and dad had the company rolling, and interest rates, as many of you probably don't know this or don't remember it, maybe you've heard of it, they went up into 16, 18, 19% range, and a lot of real estate companies just were sitting idle. There wasn't a lot to do, and luckily they had some investment properties that were able to keep the lights on. Ate a lot of spam in those days, but it was a tough time, and but somehow they hung in. They had investment properties, and they kind of stagnated the real estate business as a residential sales company. It was still there, but they really had let it go and just focused on other things. And I was licensed again in 72. We actually took the company over. I got my broker's license, I think, in 1990. And we took the company over. Go ahead.
Can you talk a little bit about the process back then of what it was actually like to show homes, to make offers, to do that sort of thing? Because it's really, I mean, to me, it's so incredibly night and day.
Well, it was a totally different world, and I was watching this from, being a kid watching his mother and father work. But back then, there were the only paperwork you had was a real estate purchase contract. That was it. And then there was a listing agreement, and those are the only two forms that you really had to have. There were no home inspections at that time. The first home inspection I can remember, we told you this the other night, was actually my home when we sold it at 1826 Elmwood Avenue, which is back on the market right now. We sold that for $92,500. It's on the market for $4.25. But that's kind of what happened. So anyway, they had to, if they had maybe 5 or 6 showings for a client, they would have to go pick up a key at each office for the home, because they didn't have lock boxes at that time. They'd pick up the keys, they would meet their clients, they would drive them around. It wasn't like, your client met you at a home like today most of the time, but they would actually pick the clients up and drive them around, and then after that, they would have to drop the keys back off to the offices. Think about it, even though fax machines were pretty much obsolete now, they didn't even have fax machines back then, so I can remember them running contracts late at night, trying to get signatures on time, and so it was just a different world. And while there were in some ways, it was much harder. My dad today looks at what we do, and he says, my gosh, you guys have it made. You can sit in your car or your beach or whatever you want to do, and you can send your dot loop offers off, and you can do everything kind of from wherever you need to be with technology the way it is today. So there were some advantages back then. There are phenomenal advantages now with the way technology has evolved. So that's, I think those are some of the biggest differences. And of course, back then there was no internet, of course, and there was not anything like an MLS to go by. They had the MLS, but it was a book that you got every month or every week. Did anybody here remember the book? Any of you? God, there's some people almost as old as I am in this room. That's it's unbelievable. So the book came maybe it was every week. I don't remember, but that's how you found out what was on the market, and there were people that still probably missed that book, I suppose.
So let's talk about what were you doing prior to really getting active in real estate?
Well, even though I was licensed in '72, I actually managed beer and wine distributorships for 25 years, and that was a nice career, but it was very laborious. We had unions to deal with, and we had suppliers to deal with. Just a lot of bulk.
I bet you meet a lot of people, though.
Oh yeah, lots from different walks. There's no question about that. It was a great opportunity, and all along I had in my mind that we would rekindle the real estate company at some point.
So let's talk about that. So that was what, 89?
We started back in '98.
90. Right. So let's talk about that.
Dyslexic. So in '98, we decided to, when I say we, it was Cindy and I at the time. I had my mind on other people, but I had my broker's license, and Cindy was licensed then right away when we decided we were going to do this. And then, of course, it was just she and I at the time. And have any of you ever worked with your spouse at all? If you consider that at some point, I want you to just keep in mind, think about that the next time you think about bringing your spouse in with you. So right after that, actually we brought, my sister-in-law is sitting in the back here, Annie Means, and this is Cindy's sister. We brought Annie on board. She was the next one to come on board, and then we didn't have a lot of clout, and so it was tough for us to try and recruit agents because there had been no reason for them to come with us at the time. So we decided to find people that we knew were well-placed in the community and had great reputations, and find them and talk them into getting a real estate license. And that's what we did. I think Terry was the first one, and she's sitting back here too. So we had about 4 or 5 of those, and we basically grew from there. And then as things went along, we were lucky enough, I think, to get into some high-end properties and found that we felt like we needed to have an affiliation with a franchise.
I think it's really interesting that you had that, pain point early on that you identified that you didn't have the people, so you had to go find them and build what it was that you thought the local market needed.
Right.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. It was, again, such as Annie and Terry and Candy Tester and Mary Beth DeSantis. Those were some of the first to join our company. That was us. That was our company. That was the core. It's still the core group. And even though we've been able to now we have almost 40 agents in our Upper Arlington office. I think we've got 8 or 10 in Bexley, which has been a good thing for us. And we have 2 offices up on Lake Erie, one in Lakeside and one in Catawba. If you ever get up that way, call us. We'll set you up. But it was very, we knew we had to have agents to survive and to grow the business. So everyone was licensed, and we had 4 or 5 that had come on board that were brand new. I remember that first year that we had the office open up at Zollinger Road. We had agents that were just, all of a sudden it just clicked. They were brand new. Terry, I think that might have been your best year ever, as I recall. But it was just amazing. And Annie was already rolling, and it just started to evolve. And then we began to look outside to recruit agents that were with other operations at that time.
Around what are we in? Around the early 2000s?
Well, yeah, we were in early 2000s because I can tell you, I remember 9/11/01. It was obviously a disaster for our country, but also I don't think our phone rang for 6 months. It was we all went to the office every day, walked around in circles, but it was a scary thing. People were afraid to do anything. It was kind of like reminded me of the situation back when Mom and Dad were there when they had interest rates at 19%. It was that kind of a feel. Nobody was really moving, and then we slowly worked our way out of that.
So what year did you make the connection with Sotheby's, and what led to that?
Well, that was interesting. That was at the point where we decided we kind of needed to get something to get to the next level because we were just running around trying to reinvent the wheel as most independent companies do, or at least at that time did. and we had been approached by a number of really good brands, and none of them just seemed to fit for us. And one day, the Sotheby's International Realty folks walked in the door unannounced, and we began a dialogue with them. And as soon as I heard, I didn't even know they had a real estate company because it was brand new then. Well, the company had been going since 1975, but they didn't franchise until 2006. We were one of the first to come on board.
How many offices did they have at that point?
Well, we were number 46 to come on board, and now they have 850 globally. So since we came on board, they've grown a little bit. They're in 45 countries, and of course all over the United States of America. So it's become an amazing firm. It's, for you, those of you who don't know, Sotheby's is owned by Realty. Actually, the Sotheby's Auction House owns the brand, but it's managed by Realty, and Realty also manages Coldwell Banker, ERA, Century 21, Better Homes and Gardens, and some others.
What's been the real value there for you and for your agents with connecting to a Realty / Sotheby's brokerage?
Well, it's interesting because I think we wanted a boutique-y feel for our brand, and I think Sotheby's gives us that. At the same time, it's part of the largest real estate company in the world, which brings a tremendous amount, a lot of clout and power to our company and to every company that they're affiliated with. Their tools and systems are beyond anything that I've seen, and I've looked at many of them. All the companies have great tools and systems. I just think these are the best that I've happened to have seen, and that's what I think separates us.
If you're an agent here today and you're thinking about making a move to a different brokerage, and I'm not, positioning this as a sales pitch for you or Sotheby's or anything like that.
Oh, please do.
I'm trying to, what things should they be thinking about? What kind of questions should they be asking to a potential broker or office?
That is a good question, because I get these questions every day because we have like 4 or 5 new people coming on next week. And what I would say to you is you have to have a good feel. It has to feel like home. At least that's how I am. I think most of our folks that we consider our family feel. I like to tell people that we actually look at our agents as our clients and our partners in business. And I think the most important part is, do you have a good feeling with the people you're talking to? Does the company have a good reputation? What are their tools and systems? How do they operate? Are they superior, and do they work?
Let's flip the question around a little bit. We have some brokers here too. As a broker, what are you looking at when you're bringing in those agents?
Well, I think the first thing is, if you want to be a part-time agent, you should go maybe to Walmart or BP or something like that. It does not work. I tried it myself when I was going to make the transition. Can't do it, can't work. So I think as a broker, you want somebody that has experience, or at least, as we said at the very beginning, has a great reputation and has a great sphere of influence. That's what it's all about. Because it's all about referrals and who you know and that type of thing.
What were some of the early maybe change / growing pains that you had transitioning to the Sotheby's brand? Or maybe just growing pains in general as you're building your brokerage?
Well, we're having those every day still, but it's interesting. It's a good feeling to have that, but it's, you start off and you're just kind of having fun with it when you have 4 or 5 or 6 people, but then next thing you know, you've got 15 and now 20 and now 40, and then it becomes another world, and you have to be able to manage it, and sometimes I know I fall short in that department, but we're working hard to try and stay up with it. But I think basically, I know when we first started off, we were, as I said earlier, trying to reinvent the wheel. We were doing our own brochures and our own advertising stuff, and it was just a lot. It was very cumbersome. And now with the brand, all that comes along.
What do you love personally about this business?
Vacation. Love vacation. Well, if you work hard, you got to be able to have some time off, okay? And I think it's great. I do love going to work. I think it's the greatest thing in the world. I don't feel like it gets back to the old thing, I don't feel like I'm working. And, the old saying, if you love what you do, you'll never work another day in your life. I believe that is really true. And so I think I love seeing the people every day, love interacting with our agents and our admins and mostly with our clients. We have the greatest clients in the world, and it's really a fun thing.
you talked about working with family. You talked about working with your wife, but you work with other family members as well. You want to elaborate on that a little bit?
Sure, I have my, I think everyone with us is part of our family, but our immediate family is my sister-in-law sitting in the back here, Annie. I met Annie when she was 9 years old. I was 16, dating her sister, and they lived on Coventry Road over by the Mallway, and Annie was always hanging around. And so we would give her, because it was only a quarter to get an ice cream cone at 31 flavors over there. So we would give Annie a quarter to get out of the way for a while. And she always ran there, and she came back just as quick as she left, unfortunately, at that time. So here it is. That was, in 1967, actually, at that point. And then, in 1981, I married her sister, and off we go. And then we decided that Annie would be perfect in a real estate, because, she was an Ohio State cheerleader. She asked me to bring that up today. So you'd all know that. In fact, do you want to give us a little, get your pom-poms with you? But anyway, she was back I'm sorry. She was there in the Woody days, and she actually she actually cheered for the Punch Bowl. Do you guys remember the Punch Bowl where Woody punched out the guy from Clemson? Yep. She cheered that game. So anyway, we decided that she'd be great in real estate, and she became licensed, and we were exactly right.
Well, you're leaving out some additional family members as well.
Well, I have my son-in-law sitting directly up here frontwards, Greg Coleman, and my daughter, Kiki Coleman, have done just an amazing job. My other daughter, Sally Wolf, is with us, so it's a family affair. My father is still a licensed broker, so, we're all in that. The truth of it is my mother actually started the company because she was the first licensed realtor. And she passed away in January. We miss her a lot, but we're carrying on for her.
So I have a daughter. She's 3.5.
She's fair game.
What is that like? What is it like working with your kids?
Actually, it's fabulous because I remember we were heartbroken when they went to college. They both went to the College of Charleston in South Carolina 2 years apart. So we spent 6 years down there. And we went down way too often. I'm sure we drove them nuts. But it was gratifying to have them both come back to the city here and come work with us. Sally worked with another company in Charleston, Unilever, for a number of years. And then Kiki went directly to Manhattan, worked for Sotheby's International Realty, actually in Manhattan, and was with one of the top agents there. She wasn't licensed. She was an admin. And they were getting ready to have her become licensed. And she was offered a phenomenal position with the company and declined it because she got sick of the concrete jungle up there. And next thing you know, she was back with us, but she brought a lot of good things back, and she and Sally have done a great job. Greg has been an asset to us because he knows a lot about technology, and obviously I don't. I'm trying to follow it as closely as I can, so it's tough.
Where's your business at today? So I know that you have the 40 agents and the Bexley, and you have Lake Erie. What else? Where are things at today?
Well, I think for people that are younger people getting in, it doesn't make a difference how old you are, I guess. I think a good thing to do is to use real estate as a platform to do some other things. So my mom and dad, I remember, did a lot of rental properties at the beginning. They still have them. And I think a lot of agents do that. You can do rehabs. You can do all kinds of different things off of this platform. And I think we've done that, and it's been rewarding for us. And there are times when this industry, as you all know, has peaks and valleys. And when those valleys come along, it's nice to be able to have something that keeps the lights on. So we have an office in Lakeside, Ohio. You may be familiar with it. It's a Chautauqua community. And we're one of 2 companies that's allowed to actually list homes in that area. But we manage 150 rental properties, and it's a nice opportunity to just keeps us going.
I really like that. I really like that idea of having some, having options beyond just selling real estate, right? Having options as far as other sources of income, how important that is.
I think it's critical.
Business. Yeah,
absolutely.
So, what else is going on in the business today? What does your day-to-day look like?
It's a train wreck, pretty much. You get up in the morning, and probably like everybody here, the first thing you do is check your emails. I do mine while I'm still laying in bed. And before I get up, I usually gone through most of them, but then by the time I'm getting ready to go, it's filled back up again. So we do that, and then, of course, I go into the office, and it depends where. I'm either in Upper Arlington or Bexley or up at the lake. In the summer, for some reason, I end up at the lake more than I do in the wintertime. But that's an advantage that I take sometimes. So it's a full day, believe me, every day, and I love it. I really do. It's a lot of my day involves talking to our agents, probably 5 or 6, 7, 8, 10 times a day.
What's your most interesting real estate related question or story? And then I want to open it up to a couple questions if anybody's sitting on anything.
Okay, well, there are so many. I'll try to pick one. I know that we showed a client one time who was coming in from California, and we showed actually him over 100 properties. Over 100, because first of all, he didn't know where he wanted to be. He didn't know what end of town to be in, so we showed him everywhere in the city. And he ended up buying the very first home we showed him in Grandview. That was in Grandview, wasn't it? Yeah, bought the very first home, $1.2 million at that time. And so, you go through that. But we learned a lot just by going through the different houses, seeing what was on the market. So he was a challenge. We sold another interesting thing was we sold a home here in Upper Arlington. It sold for $2.875, probably still the highest price closing in UA, even though there are some way more valuable homes than that right now. But that deal almost fell apart because of a chandelier, and it sat dormant for probably, 3 weeks. We could not get people together, and I felt like I wasn't doing a good job of facilitating the conversation back and forth, So finally, we put the buyer and the seller together in a conference room, and within, I'd say, 10 to 15 minutes, we had a deal. So I think I was getting in the way of that one. I learned a little from that.
What's the biggest challenge? What's the biggest challenge to newer agents coming into the space right now?
I think it's just getting traction at the beginning. It's so hard at the beginning. There's a lot of competition out there, but there's a way to separate yourself. There's a lot of ways to do that, and I can tell you, it's like. We have some new folks in our office right now that are working hard, and they're trying to get it going, and they will, but it just takes time for people to understand what you're doing and know that you're doing it. And the one thing I would say is don't be afraid to let people know that you're in the real estate business. Let everyone in the world know that, because they'll pass that on to other people, and before you know it, you're going to have people talking to you about it and taking it seriously. But I guess the most important thing is go in the office every day. Spend time with it. Get on the MLS. Make phone calls. Give it. If you spend as much time with this business as you would in any other job, you will be successful. Unless you got something really going on that we don't know about. You should be very successful. It just takes time. It's like anything else. It doesn't happen automatically. You don't go out and get a real estate license and all of a sudden become an overnight success. It doesn't happen. It's great. It did happen with Terry. She was lucky. But it's one of those things where you just have to spend time doing it and make sure that you're spending 3 or 4 hours a day making phone calls, cold calls. If you're afraid to make cold calls, become unafraid very quickly. It will work.
If you, knowing what you know now, had to start with a clean slate today, is that what you would be doing? What would you be doing if you had to start over today?
Oh, if I'm coming in as a brand new agent, working for that's what I would do, yeah. Because actually, I kind of did cold turkey when I came in, when I left the beverage industry coming into this. I had 2 or 3 closings under my belt that we had coming up, but I just left, and I had to scramble, and I was working till 9, 10 o'clock at night just making phone calls, calling everybody that I knew. I was looking in the newspaper at that time. This was 1998. I was in the newspaper every weekend, every night, looking at FSBOs and making phone calls and going on those appointments, and I'd beg them, give me a shot, let me try it, and finally 1 or 2 gave me a try, and, one thing led to another, and here we are.
How important is it to work your warm sphere?
Oh, it's critical, because I think even if that sphere is not ready for you, they may know someone that is, and that's the most important part. It has tentacles, and it goes, and it goes, and it goes, and that's why the technology today, it's so much different now than when I started out doing this in '98, rekindling the company, because I watch Greg do stuff, and I'm like, God, and what the heck is he doing? And he's doing all this Facebook advertising and all these different things, and I didn't have that back then. We just had the newspaper and that kind of a thing. So,
what kind of questions should they be asking? So, some real practical advice here. I got you on the hot seat. What questions should they be asking that warm sphere who may not be interested but may know someone else? What would that conversation look like for you?
If I were making that phone call, well, first of all, I want to let them know that this was something I was doing on a full-time basis, and it was my career. And this wasn't something I'm doing, just kind of a flash in the pan type of a thing or a part-time thing. I would let them know for sure that it was a full-time thing, and I was going to make a career out of this, and I would really appreciate their help. You've been friends for a long time. I've always admired you. I love you more now than I ever have. And so I'd ask them, who's handling it, how have they done in real estate so far? Have they had good experiences with it? Have they been successful in selling and buying? And have they done any type of investing in rental properties or commercial properties? And who are they using as an agent right now? And what do they like or not like about what's happening there? Kind of act like they're going to be your mentor and ask them as if you're trying to find out for yourself how these things are going to end up.
That's a good approach. Let's open it up. Anyone have any questions? Central Ohio in the next 10 years, what do you see things looking like?
Well, there are sure a lot more people that are smarter than me that could answer that question way better than I can, but just based on what I see from my seat, I think you can all see that this city is growing by leaps and bounds right now, and all indications are that it's going to continue that way. I think we do commercial real estate too, and also property management, but and I believe that's really coming on strong. But we're going to have, I think, a huge infusion, an influx of population here. Businesses, it's a great city because it's a white-collar city. We're not really dependent too much here upon industry. So we have a lot of corporate headquarters right here in the town. I think that's a great thing for real estate. And, of course, more people that come in, the more companies that come in, the more homes need to be built. I think we're gonna have a shortage right now of rental properties. It sounds and it seems like people are building apartments day after day after day, but there's still not enough. And so I think that's going to be the future. And I think we've got in the next 10 years. I think if you hang in this business, you're going to do very well. I sure hope so.
Yeah, go ahead. Go ahead and back.
I like it. I did that myself, actually, when I was 25 years old. And I still have that property, as a matter of fact, in Grandview. But I think it's a great thing for a young person to get started. They live in one half. They can probably make their payment, with the other side. And I think once you start doing that, then you buy another one and another one. We have a couple right now that we're working with that have a home in Upper Arlington. They want to get something a little bit larger. They've decided to keep their home. They're going to rent it. And then they're going to move on to a little bit larger home, and then they want to buy some other rental property. So I think that's a wonderful idea. Well, like everything else, if you want to make money, there's going to be some effort that goes into it. But that's what we do. So if you have people like that and they need a management company, we'd be happy to help them. But honestly, it's not that tough to do, especially if you're in the right areas. It's you put a sign out, and I've never ever advertised a rental property. Never had to. But I don't, as far as will they have trouble renting it, as far as having the people that want to rent it, I would say absolutely no. Not in this market. There's not enough rental properties right now. I don't know if you all know this, but Columbus, Ohio is the #1 rental market in the country. #1.
One more. Go ahead, Keith.
So I'm going to come from a little different angle. I'm not an agent. I'm a potential client. I'm going to be selling a house in the near future.
Down, down, down.
Hold on, I'm getting my card out.
Down, easy.
So, how can a client get the most out of their agent to do the best job for them, to get the best value for their house?
Are you talking about performance or just basically the price of the home?
Both.
Okay. Well, I guess they go hand in hand. Yeah. Well, I think the best thing to do is interview a number of people, and we always have. I would rather have a listing that comes to me after they've interviewed 2 or 3 people. I like to be last going in too, but I think the most important thing is to have them interview 3 or 4 people. Get someone who can tell you exactly what their marketing plan is going to be, how your property is going to be presented on the internet, because that's the most important part today. The newspaper still exists, but you guys can look at the SNP and see how big those sections are today. Years ago, we had sections that were this thick. Now I looked today actually, and there was one real estate ad in the SNP in Upper Arlington, one. So you need to make sure that you have a fantastic internet presence, because as you know, 90-some% of the people looking at homes are starting on the internet. That's what they come to us after that. So that's a big piece. And find out how it's going to look on their website. Website's a huge piece of this also, and I think photography is big. You'll want to look at the photography and see how they do that. We will probably within the next 6 months be required to do video of every home we have listed. Video is king today. In some cases where we have resort properties, we're doing aerials, drone videos. So those are all important things to ask. You need to know how are you going to appear once you go live with this company.
So one of our regulars who's not here today, he's in Buffalo, is Sean Carpenter. And I know you go a little ways back with Sean, and he's going to watch this, I'm sure.
Oh, boy.
So let's talk about Sean a little bit. When did you first meet Sean?
Well, I first met Sean when we lived at 1826 Elmwood Avenue, where we had the first home inspection I told you about earlier. Sean was probably in his teens. I know he was in his teens. I was working in the beer business at that time. And as soon as I met him, I just loved him. He's one of those kind of guys, just like he is today. You just love him the second you see him. But he was a great guy. He cut our grass for us for 3 or 4 years. And then next thing I know, we moved away, and here comes Sean Carpenter, and he is like an international hero these days. And he's done just an amazing job with Coldwell Banker, and I just have so much respect for him and all he's done in this industry. He's a great friend.
He'll get a kick out of that. I wanted to throw that in there because I think he's going to be talking with us in November. So
also, he may want to mention to him that I did provide him with many different beer neons, neon signs
that
he had hanging up in his bedroom for many years.
Oh, I know he appreciates that. How important is it for an agent to be a local expert in their community? So you've been an Arlington native your whole life. How important is that in your business?
Well, I think it's important. We're trying to be a local expert in every community if we can. A lot of us were born and raised here in Upper Arlington, so it's a natural fit for us. Greg was born and raised in Bexley, and of course we have an office in Bexley, and so he's really well connected. He was also the men's soccer coach at Bexley for how many years? 11 years, and did a phenomenal job, by the way. So it is very important to be part of the community. We do scholarships at the high schools, and we have the sign, the athletic field sign at Bexley, and we try to do as much as we can, grassroots stuff as we can, and everywhere that we can.
Well, and I think regardless of whether you're from the area or you're from outside the area, you have to get involved. I mean, at some level.
Absolutely, you have to be part of the community. Some of the best realtors in the city that I've watched have been successful because of their children, because their kids meet other kids, and the moms and dads are all talking, and next thing you know, this person becomes a hero. And it's all about being involved with the area that you live in. Do as much as you can to promote that area and let people know what you're doing. Don't be afraid to let them know that you're involved in what you're doing. I think it's very important.
What do you get excited about today? What do you look forward to doing? What are the things that excite you in your business today? Maybe it's business, maybe it's some personal. What's going on with you today that excites you?
Well, most importantly, 2 granddaughters. Twins, as a matter of fact. They're 21 months old, 22. I don't know. They're 22 months old. They'll be 2 years in October. I don't know. Anyway, they're a very important part of our family. My children that are in business with us, they're all very important to us. The company is a big thing. I've got my father running around at 89 years old. So we're the sandwich generation, they call it, because you have your kids on one level and the parents still here at the other level. So we're busy with work, we're busy with play. We do like to have a good time, and I think that's critical for anybody that works hard, and I know you all do. Please take time to enjoy yourself, or you'll burn yourself out. This business can take you over.
Where's your business going in the next? We touched on it a little bit, but what's your focus in the next 5 to 10 years? Where do you see things going for you and your agents?
Well, obviously, retention of agents is the most important part of what we do. Agent retention. We're in a growth pattern. I've always believed that either when you're in business, either you grow or you shrink. and we believe we're going to keep growing. We plan on opening up probably 2 more offices eventually in the next 5 years. Here in Upper Arlington, we're also moving into the Cleveland area. We're working on that right now, as a matter of fact. That's taken a little bit more time, but actually Cleveland's contiguous to our Lakeside office, is only 40 miles away. So we're looking for, we're like the Marines, we're looking for a few good people.
Yeah, I like that. Any other questions out there? All right. So whenever we do these, you know, whoever comes and is in the hot seat typically has some things they've thought about, they want to touch on, they want to leave the audience with. Have you had any of those thoughts coming into this?
Well, I mean, I guess I would just say that from my perspective, this has been a very rewarding business. I love seeing young people getting into it. By the time I went into this thing full time, I was almost 50, you know, so I'm still trying to catch up. But those of you who came at an earlier age or are young, I think you're at a perfect career. You know, if you work this and do it the right way, and I would say the most important thing is, I guess I'm philosophizing. Okay. But I guess the most important thing is to always do the right thing. If there's ever a question of should you disclose, disclose. Don't even think about it. Because it's not worth having an issue over something, and always be upfront and do what you'd like to have done to you. Just be real with everybody you're dealing with, and you'll be successful. And I think now that if you're coming in here at an age of 30 or whatever it might be, or younger or a little bit older, boy, you know, you can make as much money in this industry as you can in any other walk of life if you do it right and spend the time with it. But you have to keep manifesting that and continue to keep in contact with your past clients. Very, very important. It's easy to have a closing and walk away and go, well, I got that check. And the other thing is, do not be transactional. Do you know what I mean by that? What I mean is, don't sit there and look at every deal as if it has to close, because that's how you're going to get yourself in trouble. Okay? I've been there and I've done that. Especially when you first start out, you're really wanting that first 2 or 3 or 4 closings to happen because you really want that check coming in, the commission check. Well, act as if you've got 10 more behind it, and eventually you will. And treat every transaction as if you don't really care if it closes or not, and just do the right thing all the way through. It'll come back to be an advocate for you.
I think that's a great point, and I think that's the idea of acting as if, and the idea of acting and projecting your business not where it necessarily is, but where you want it to go, and acting in that way appropriately, right?
Right, exactly.
Well, very cool. So is there anything you want to leave us with besides that? We covered a lot of ground. You're a very fast talker. You cover a lot in a short amount of time.
Well, you have to look at my family.
I appreciate it.
First of all, thank you so much for having us. You've done a magnificent job with your company, and we appreciate the opportunity to sit in front of all of you, and I hope it didn't bore you too much. It's been a great time. I've thoroughly enjoyed it, and I'd come back sometime if you ever shorten for somebody to come in and talk. But we got a question back here.
I know you had on your website already the past clients to generate new business. Are there any other things that your company does, like working with homeowners associations to get people ready for people in the neighborhood that might be selling, or do you do any partnerships with any other groups within the community to get new business or
Well, I mean, I think what as far as getting new business, we like to do, Sotheby's has some phenomenal postcards that we use. They also have electronic postcards that we send out. You know, I think just listed and just sold, it makes a lot of sense in the areas that you're focusing on. We actually have property management divisions, so we do manage some homeowners associations, and we try to make sure that we're, able to do business with them when people buy and sell, whether it be a single-family residential association or a condominium association. I'm not sure if that's where you're going or not, but.
So what we do after this is we're going to do a happy hour that Matthew is kind enough to host for us. And if you didn't put a picture up, boo, but I guess we'll let you know where it's going to be. So you want to talk a little bit about where we're going to be going here, Scott?
I do, and I'll thank Matthew in advance. I'm sure he'll be there. So we're going to a new place called Palais, P-A-L-L-E, and Palais is short for, anybody know? It's not short for it. It's an Italian meaning for the word, vabbè, spicy meatball. It's short for balls, okay? So palle means balls. So we're going to go over to, so our office in Upper Arlington, it happens to be adjacent to Moretti's restaurant, which we go to way too often. And it's a great place. Their food's great. And Tim Moretti has branched out and opened this restaurant on 5th Avenue. It's right across from...
Brazenhead.
Actually, right next door to Brazenhead, right across the street on the same side of 5th Avenue. He's got about 300 rooftops on top of him with apartments, so it's a natural fit for them. And I've not been there since they opened last week, so we're all going to invite you to come and have a cocktail or whatever you like and some spicy meatballs.
So thank you, Scott, and if you all would help me thank Scott for his time today.
Thank you. Thank you very much.